Our favourite time to talk to our favourite person, Megyn Kelly, The Megyn Kelly Show. Find it on YouTube or Sirius XM. Do you still feel like it's buzzing? I'm still on cloud nine, mate. What about you?
Same. I truly haven't felt this euphoric. I don't remember the last time. Certainly not professionally. When do you ever feel professionally euphoric? Just I'm absolutely thrilled. And I do just feel like in many ways our country was saved. It was saved by what happened last Tuesday. It's not that it would have gone away had she won, but I just don't know how we would have handled 4 more years of that far left rule and the open borders, the number of dead Americans we would have had. I mean, the war, I feel truly it's like the dawn of a new day. I feel hopeful about my children. I'm walking around clicking my heels.
Now, I know the world has moved on from Kamala Harris, but could we just take just a little second? She raises $1 billion, spends it all, and ends up $20 million in debt. How the heck did she do that?
It's unbelievable. If these reports are true, and some of them we've seen ourselves. So like, I'll get to the Oprah one in 1 second, but she reportedly paid $5 million to Megan Thee Stallion to perform at one of her rallies. $5 million. And the reason she did that is because Kamala Harris could get no crowds. She had a couple when she first announced. It was like, oh, this is exciting. There's a switcheroo. The dead guy's not running anymore. I'm in favor. And so there was a little in the beginning. And then they realized she stinks. And they weren't coming. And so they spent $5 million to say, oh, basically come to a Megan Thee Stallion concert. And people did. And then they realized, oh my God, this is the way we're going to do it. This is how we're going to get people to show up. We're going to tell them Beyonce is going to be here and they'll show up, which they did. But then Beyonce didn't perform, but still got a bunch of money. And then we get to the Oprah thing. Now, you and I both know, and Oprah still considers herself a journalist, as far as I understand. You and I both know, if we want an interview with Kamala Harris, one thing we would not be allowed to do is to say, we'll pay you money, Kamala Harris, or you pay us money, and then we can make this interview happen. Both of those are totally unethical. No money is to change hands between actual journalists and their subjects. And the only exception to that rule is you can pay for their expenses for like a flight out to, the interview. And you can pay for if you need to like license their wedding photos because you're doing an in-depth picture, profile on them. That's okay. Well, somehow or another, Oprah's profile of Kamala Harris wound up costing Kamala Harris $1 million. $1 million. Because that big town hall in which Oprah Winfrey kept yelling at us, Kamala Harris, so annoying. She charged Kamala Harris 2 payments of $500,000 for that. And Oprah was caught on camera this morning by one of those TMZ type guys saying, Oprah, you took $1 million for that interview? And Oprah said, no, I wasn't paid anything. So the payments were to Harpo Productions, her production company. So I guess ostensibly they could set up that set. I've been on a lot of beautiful sets, beautiful, that they had to build. Is $1 million? Never heard of such a thing. No, do not. And what I saw there would have been pricey. $1 million? No. By the way, I'm sure Harpo Productions already has a beautiful stage that she could have gone to. And to add some video screens like that you rent, you're not buying. How is it $1 million? I don't get it. To me, it seems like she was greased. They greased Harpo Productions, and Oprah naturally wanted Kamala to win anyway. So everybody wins. Like, here's $1 million. We're just burning our donors' money. And Oprah looks like a hero because we all know, just like Meryl Streep said, we all know Kamala's going to win. I know you're going to win. Meryl said, Madam President. Oh, I meant Vice President. So the fix was in. And how many of those people got paid? Is that where the money went? Did Meryl get a payment? Did J-Lo get a payment? Did Chris Rock get a payment? Because there were a lot of stars there that night. How much did they get, if any, for their endorsement, their totally organic endorsement? Would love to know.
I think it's particularly ridiculous, the $100,000 that was spent replicating the set of the sex podcast Call Her Daddy. Now, this is because Harris wouldn't go to them, so they came to her, but they wanted it to look like she went to them, so they faked an entire podcast set in a hotel room. And for $100,000, here's what they should have done, okay? Now, okay, she wants to be lit in a certain way, shot a certain way. Here's how it works. You set up a camera in a hotel room, and you set up another camera for somebody who's going to be interviewing you, okay? And you do exactly what all those movie stars do when they're promoting something, which is that you line 4 interviewers up, thanks very much, you give them the tape, you give them the tape, you give them the tape. They did not need to do this.
Yeah. So first of all, that is a campaign that does not give a fig about their donors' money. They couldn't care less about using that money wisely. I don't know how it costs $100,000 to replicate a set of a podcast. I really don't. I mean, I'll just give you, I'll lift the dress up here, Paul. We did an in-depth interview with the Stolen Valor guys, Tim Walz's platoon mates, who were saying, you know, he lied about his rank, he lied about this, lied about the other thing. We had to get a place offsite. We rented it. We had to bring in a big team to mic the guys, to shoot it, to light it, all the bit. We had to fly them in. I think all in that whole thing was like $15,000, which is not cheap, but the Call Her Daddy, it was the one lady, the host, and Kamala in a hotel room with like, well, they had to make it look like the Call Her Daddy set. I looked at the set. It had a couple plants, a couple lights, a couple of books, and the letters with the podcast name. I, for the love of me, do not have any clue how that bill gets run up to $100,000. It's like they wanted to buy people's love. It's like they wanted to flush it down because there's some rule that you shouldn't be left with any in the coffers. I'm sure the donors don't know about that rule. And what happened in the end was they actually ran out of money. They didn't have all that money in the bank still to pay all to get out the voters. That's not why she lost, but it wasn't good money or time management. And so she had spent so much on freaking Oprah that we talked to the get out the vote person for Trump today. She was saying in Michigan, we never saw them. Our people were all over the streets knocking on the doors of the Muslim community, the Arab community. Never saw them. We saw 2 guys one time. That was it. I think it's because Megan Thee Stallion was busy spending the money that should have been paying for canvassers.
Now, the media. I'm not going to call it the mainstream media. It isn't. We are the mainstream. We are where the common sense is. But the establishment media love to pretend that they always saw this coming when they, of course, were part of the problem right up until Election Day. Perfect example, Joe Scarborough, former Republican, but only in name only. He's now a hard left guy on MSNBC, bashing Trump up and Hitler every single day. Well, now he's the one turning around and saying, oh, I told you so. I'm sorry, the people who broke it don't get to tell us how to fix it.
I mean, it would be so glorious. But sometimes you forget, you know, Scarborough in particular started off as a politician. And most politicians lie. He always did. And so it's very easy for him to say on Monday, the sky is blue, and then say on Tuesday, it's not blue. And I never said it was blue. And I've been on the side of the never bluers right from the beginning. I don't know what you're saying. Why would you accuse me of having said it was blue? It's amazing the hubris that takes to be able to look right in the camera and just lie like that. I don't have that in me. I really don't have that in me. So he has no credibility, but he has a leftist audience that doesn't care. They don't care if they're getting lied to. I guess there's a business for that. You know, I'm sure there's some version of that on the right that I can't think of that does that. Maybe I don't know who that is, but this is not the world in which I traffic. I tell my audience when the news is not good for them, and I know what they want to hear. We're not really in the business of telling them what they want to hear if we have any foothold in news at all. So I guess it's a winning model for him because, you know, in the universe of NBC News and MSNBC News, he's one of the kings. They love that show. They think it has cultural influence because all these smart people, the elites, go on that show. That's great. I hope you really feel good about yourselves as you watch Trump govern. I hope it's like a wonderful warm blanket to you as you watch him be sworn in and Republicans take over the Senate and control the House and pass a bunch of laws that you're going to hate, but you're important. Don't let anyone tell you different.
Now, as Trump starts to pick the people that are going to sit in and around his cabinet, there are people who are former political foes, like Marco Rubio, in as Secretary of State, a guy who served his country and then has since gone on to be a television host in Pete Hegseth. He's going to be the Defence Secretary. But there's some talk about a purity test that basically only the most MAGA of MAGA people will be invited to play at the start of the administration. So how do you feel about the purity test? Oh, yeah, and how do you feel about Kristi Noem, the South Dakota governor? She's, of course, going to be the Secretary for Homeland Security, which, from an Australian perspective, are the people who pat you down at the airport. Oh, yeah, and she's the puppy killer, the one who shot a puppy in the face.
I'm against the woman who shot the puppy. I'm not a fan of the puppy shooter at all for a bunch of reasons. But having said that, I'm not sure because Marco Rubio he would not pass the Trump purity test. And yet he's reportedly gotten the highest post that Trump has given out yet, which is Secretary of State. So I'm not sure if that's really true. I think what they're looking for, and I heard this from Don Jr. on my show earlier this week, they're looking for loyalists. They want genuinely MAGA people who get it and believe it, but also competence. He said last time around, had a bunch of people who were loyal, but who were incompetent. And then we had people who were not loyal, who were competent. And neither one worked. So this time around, they're trying to find people who are genuinely rooting for Trump and understand MAGA and have adopted it, but also know what they're doing. And I feel like for the most part, they're nailing it. Like Elise Stefanik, who he named as UN ambassador, she'll be great. She was very Trumpy. She doesn't have a ton of foreign policy experience, but she's very smart. And she's pugilistic, which is great for the UN. So thumbs up on that one. This guy who's going to be doing the deportations, this Tom Hogan, he is like your dream. He's probably an Aussie. He's like what we wanted from your country to come over here and clean up our situation, deport the criminal illegals. And then I'm going to be honest, deport the non-criminal illegals, like the ones who don't belong here. He's not talking about like the ones who came and they overstayed their visa because they're married to an American citizen and it's just too much paperwork. We're talking about the flow, the 20 million, 10 to 20 that came into this country over the past 4 years. I'm sorry that you believed you had a right to be here. You don't. You don't. I think about my nephew. My nephew's American. He went over to Korea and he taught for a couple of years and he fell in love with a Korean girl. He came back and had a baby. He came back to the United States and now he would like his wife to join him. He's got their son here who's half American and half Korean. And you would not believe the number of hoops that his wife has to jump through. It's insane what they're making. And she's a lawyer and she's a professional. But we're supposed to just say to all these people who sneaked across the border from Venezuela, you could stay. We're good. Never mind. We're not going to actually sick the deportation czar on you. Forget that. He is going to come for them after he prioritizes the criminals. And most Americans are fine with it. We deported 3 million people under Barack Obama. So I really don't want to hear it. I think that's going to be a glorious thing in the Trump agenda. And I think so for the most part, he's nailing the personnel. And I think the Trump loyalist thing, that's important. But like total purity going back in time is going to be next to impossible to find.
An issue that I know you care about deeply, you spoke about it on the campaign trail, we talk about it many weeks here, which is, of course, the nonsense in and around gender, and particularly when it comes to our kids. What's something that you want to see as hard action in the right direction from this administration almost from day one?
Well, under Trump, in the first administration, it was the Secretary of Education, Betsy DeVos, who did a lot of good on Title IX revisions, she was undoing what Barack Obama had done. Which in, summary, she was restoring women's rights, making sure that women were protected, but also making sure that young men had due process rights on college campuses. And then Joe Biden came in and completely rewrote Title IX to undo women's rights in a way that Barack Obama had not even done and deprive young men of due process on college campuses. So we need Trump's, I don't know if it's going to be Secretary of Education. He says he's going to get rid of the Department of Education, which most Republicans would cheer. But it's complicated because some monies go to like special ed, thanks to that. Like there's certain things we like that we wouldn't want to get rid of. And those decisions will have to be made by somebody smart. So it's going to have to be somebody who is against boys and girls sports and spaces, someone who is against porn in K through 12 classroom libraries, which truly is what we are seeing more and more in the United States. And I'm not a prude. I'm just telling you, like, second grade boys should not have books about anal sex in their library. Sorry to be so graphic, but it's happening here. And somebody who understands the damage that those Title IX revisions made. And then apart from that, somebody who understands what we've done to American education, which has been totally made into DEI factories as opposed to factories where kids learn. They teach the test. There's so many problems. It should be handled on a local basis. Anyway, someone like a Bessie DeVos, or, I think the perfect person might be to look for some brilliant college professor who was non-woke, who got his ass handed to him by some woke faculty, who felt it personally and is with us on all the girls issues. Somebody like that who understands how dangerous and pernicious this role can be and this department can be.
Well, I've got an idea, which is that they should have a secretary for common sense, and I am talking to the person that I would help navigate through the Senate confirmation process. What do you think?
I've never aspired to a job in government, at least not that I remember. There was something in my high school yearbook about it, as I was reminded by some publication. I really love the fact that I can work basically from home now. And Paul, as you know, every day I do it, I'm wearing my stretchy pants. Are they going to let me wear the stretchy pants in government? I don't think so. I don't think Secretary of Common Sense wears the stretchy pants, even though she should, because they are commonsensical. I'm going to stick with what I got now.
Good stuff. We'll see you again next week. Thank you, Megyn.
See you, Paul.